Hoffa had told him kill the president.
It's a mystery wrapped in a riddle inside an enigma.
President Kennedy has been seriously wounded by this shooting.
One of the darkest days in American history, the most investigated crime ever committed. And while there are still no solid answers, an accumulation of evidence and testimony suggests a conspiracy to kill the president. A 2-year investigation by Congress found the Mafia to be the most probable suspect, a conclusion which put Las Vegas mob figures at the very center of the alleged plot.
President Kennedy died at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time, 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time.
The Nevada gangster at the top of the suspect list, Johnny Rosselli, the one-time Don of Las Vegas, an ambassador not only for the ruling Chicago family, but also linked to Florida kingpin Meyer Lansky and the New York Mafia. Less well known was that Rosselli also worked for the CIA as a link between the government spooks and the mob in a plot to kill Fidel Castro. Also in on that plot, Chicago mob boss Sam Giancana, who secretly shared a mistress with John Kennedy. Rosselli and Giancana had been recruited to the CIA by Las Vegan Robert Maheu, a former FBI agent and one-time top aide to Howard Hughes. Maheu admits he was the middleman in the Castro assassination plan.
I was on retainer to the CIA to handle assignments of a sensitive nature from time to time.
2 other mobsters who were part of the Castro plot and later suspected in the Kennedy killing, Miami mob boss Santo Tropicana, who had family ties in Cuba, and New Orleans Don Carlos Marcello, at one time a hidden owner of the Tropicana Hotel. For a time, the mob families felt that by helping nail Castro, the government might ease up on their illegal activities. But the Kennedy administration did just the opposite, cracking down on organized crime. The mob felt double-crossed. FBI wiretaps overheard Jimmy Hoffa offering a bounty on the Kennedy brothers. Another tap heard Tropicana brag that the president would be hit. And Carlos Marcello said the same to a Las Vegas investigator and author months before the assassination.
Then he started telling me in sort of a vernacular, Italian vernacular, no, you got to kill the president. You know, you chop off the head is what he said, and the tail dies. So, pretty scary.
Hey, Mr. President.
Look over here!
For years, polls showed most Americans believed that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone. Today, a clear majority thinks otherwise, and with good reason. A congressional investigation in the late 70s found it likely that JFK was killed in a conspiracy. Acoustics tests made it, quote, 99% certain, the panel found, that a second gunman was involved. But who was he? The House pointed its finger at organized crime.
Ask not what your country can do for you.
The mob had plenty of motive. John Kennedy had been elected with considerable help from the Mafia, especially in Chicago. But after the election, brother Robert came after the mob with a vengeance. Prosecutions quadrupled. Wiretaps flourished, with Las Vegas a prime target.
He already has his vendetta against Jim Hoffa. He also publishes a list of the 10 most wanted that he's going to go after, and Carlos Marcello's on the list, Giancana's on the list.
For Las Vegas, this was serious business. Jimmy Hoffa had used Teamster millions to virtually build the Las Vegas Strip. New Orleans boss Carlos Marcello, named as a Kennedy target, was a hidden owner in the Tropicana Hotel. The Chicago mob was preeminent here. Its head, Sam Giancana, was high on the Kennedy list. Giancana's ambassador to Las Vegas was Johnny Rosselli, a one-time gunman for Al Capone, with ties to Eastern mob families as well.
So I got to know them. I got to know the movie stars. I got to know Rosselli. I got to know all the people connected with Rosselli.
Ed Becker worked at the Riviera Hotel in the late 50s under mob figure Gus Greenbaum. He was privy to many secrets, including secrets linking the Kennedys to the mob. Sam Giancana and John Kennedy shared the same mistress for a time. Giancana and other Chicago mobsters had met many times with Kennedy's father Joe, a former bootlegger. But the biggest secret of all, the very same mobsters being pursued by the Kennedys were working with the CIA in a plot to kill Fidel Castro. The middleman in that plot was Las Vegan Robert Maheu.
Part of the plan was to dispose of Castro.
Relentless government pressure, plus the sense they'd been double-crossed, provided motive aplenty for the mob to kill Kennedy. FBI wiretaps, not made public until years later, overheard Jimmy Hoffa offer a bounty to kill the Kennedys. Miami mobster Santo Trafficante told associates, quote, "The president is going to be hit." And Ed Becker heard it directly from the mouth of kingpin Carlos Marcello.
Chop off of the head, the tail dies. No more wagging the tail.
Meaning?
Meaning, they kill the president, Bobby's out, which unfortunately happened.
Becker told his story to the FBI, but the feds didn't believe him.
They had electronic surveillance on Sam Giancana and Rosselli where they hear him say they're going to kill the president.
And Becker says they even told him how they would do it. More on that tomorrow. George Knapp, Channel 8 Eyewitness News.
By this shooting.
You've got to feel there's something very strange in all of this that ties it all together to some kind of a conspiracy.
Dallas police, the FBI, and later the Warren Commission figured they had an open and shut case against Lee Harvey Oswald.
All the loose ends will be tied together in one neat package.
But the wrapping on this package unraveled quickly.
Anything to say in your defense? Oswald has been shot.
15 years later, a House panel found it highly likely that a conspiracy was involved, concluding that New Orleans mob kingpin Carlos Marcello had the motive, means, and opportunity to have it done. Like other mobsters, Marcello was under intense pressure from the Kennedys. FBI wiretaps overheard several mobsters talking about a hit on the Kennedys. Chicago's Sam Giancana, whose family controlled Las Vegas. Johnny Rosselli, the Don of Las Vegas. Jimmy Hoffa, whose union funds built Las Vegas. Marcello himself, who had hidden ownership in the Tropicana Hotel. And Santos Trafficante, Marcello's man in Miami, who had a piece of the Sands Hotel. Investigator Ed Becker, who worked for the mob-run Riviera Hotel, says Marcello even told him how it could be done.
Carlos had said, what you do is you get a nut and you put him up in front and he does all the dirty work and you're clean.
What the Warren Commission failed to uncover is that Marcello already had a, quote, nut. Ed Becker and other witnesses told the FBI that Lee Oswald had numerous direct ties to Marcello's crime family. Oswald was seen many times with Marcello underling David Ferry, a key figure in the alleged plot, and there were other ties.
Oswald, you know, his uncle worked for Marcello as a bookie, and Oswald lived in his uncle's house when he came back from Russia.
Did you kill the president?
No, I've not been charged with that.
But who could have coordinated a murder conspiracy? Some investigators say the likely choice was Johnny Rosselli, the Las Vegas fixer who had worked closely with Marcello, Trafficante, and Giancana. These same mobsters had been contacted by Rosselli to work for the CIA in a plan to kill Fidel Castro. Years later, all four would be called to testify before the House about the Castro plot and about JFK. In the weeks before Dallas, Johnny Rosselli crisscrossed the country for meetings with the mob bosses. New records show he also met with one Jack Ruby. But just before the dark day, Rosselli disappeared.
He was under surveillance the full time. The week of the assassination, they lost him. All of a sudden, he disappears. Now we have sightings from other people that he was in Dallas.
Years later, Rosselli testified twice before the House panel. He was scheduled for a third appearance, but someone shut him up. His dismembered body was found floating in a barrel. Johnny in a drum, the mob later joked. Sam Giancana was murdered a week before he was to testify about JFK. Trafficante and Marcello are suspects in these hits, but records remain sealed.
Why? You know, why?
George Knapp, Channel 8 Eyewitness News.